Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Invest Power series. The other day I actually encountered a really good post on Property Chat. I don't know whether you guys actually go onto that forum. It's called propertychat.com.au. It's a very good property investment forum. I actually picked up so much knowledge and from that when I was in my investing phase. And the other day I actually encountered this really good post by KieranK, and it talks about 10 principles of investment. And I think he actually gathers that from a lot of different sources. And I'm figuring out that Kieran must have some really good experience by the amount of posts that he's done and the things that he talks about. As a matter of fact, he's in the retirement phase already. Kind of shows that he's already got a lot of good wisdom that we can pick up from. So I saw this post and I reached out to him and I said, can I actually talk about these 10 principles and share that with my audiences? Because I'm sure that everyone like me, while we're still on our property journey, we would definitely want to make sure that we learn these wisdoms and we pick up these wisdoms, right? So I've got the approval from him to be able to talk about those 10 principles. And today I just want to share the first part, which will go through 3 key principles today on investing. Okay, so number one tip or number one principle is only buy in Sydney, Melbourne, or Brisbane. Now, that's quite a controversial one, and I'm sure that's why I picked the first one to start off with, because a lot of you watching this video will probably go, no, I don't agree with that. I made a lot of money out of, let's say, for example, Adelaide, Perth, Tasmania. Why is it not on the list? Again, this is just some tips, and you don't have to agree with it, but the fundamental message behind this, only investing in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane just comes down to you want to be able to invest in good fundamental cities. So in this scenario, it's Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, because they're the 3 biggest city in terms of population, in terms of economic climate of Australia. That's why you want to be able to invest in these areas, because when you do, these cities have the ability to be able to attract people coming to here. When people immigrate here, they need a job, right? They need to be able to earn money to be able to feed themselves and be able to rent a place. So that's why when you have employment opportunities, that's when it will attract people and attract population to come in. And when you have population, when you have jobs, that's when there will be demand for dwellings, demand for rentals. And that's why if you actually invest in these capital cities, most of the time you wouldn't have too much of an issue in terms of holding the property, because it wouldn't be challenging for you to be able to find a tenant. So that's the key message behind this. Now the debate could go, hey, Perth's got the same thing, mining is about to kick back up. Tasmania, there will always be retirement people. But, I think you can certainly go onto these arguments as long as you want. But I think the key message here really is, don't invest in a country, a rural town where there is no employment opportunity, no population growth. You got to ask yourself, what's going to attract people to move here? And if you can't answer that, then fundamentally, it's probably not the right place to invest. Okay. Principle number 2 is kind of like an extrapolation of 1, which talks about buy as close to CBD as possible. Now, again, the key message behind this is because there's only so much land that's available from within around CBD area. So you want to be able to buy the land because it's scarce. You cannot produce more land component. Another way of looking at it is it's called landlocked. So imagine like within the 10 to 15 kilometer radius of your capital city, let's say Sydney, for example, there is no more land in this city. So as you can imagine, the demand for these short distance to CBD is only going to go up. And as such, that's how the land value will appreciate over time, is because of these land, there's only a scarcity land factor in there. So as demand continues to grow, that's why the prices, will continue to soar up, because there's no more further supply of land available for you. So that's a very key investment philosophy in my opinion, because some people ask me, okay, well, look, I want to be able to purchase in this location. Let's say, for example, somewhere quite far, Box Hill in Sydney, and they might be asking me, is this a good investment to make? Now, the question I will ask is there a lot of land available around the area? Because if it is, then chances are it's probably not going to be a good investment. Why? Well, because there's still a lot of supply of land. So if there's so much supply of land, and how would the price be able to go up if there's so much supply? Think about it like the current Sydney rental situation. We got so much rental supplies currently on the market, and demand stay the same. When you have supply like this and demand like this, of course the rent is going to drop because people can choose around. People can shop around to say, I don't like this unit, I don't have to live in there, I'm going to move into a different one. Same analogy applies to purchasing land. So, like when people only have a scarcity or only have limited options to choose from, that's when they will have to compete. And when they have to compete, that's when the prices goes up. So that's why it circles back to the original principle of this: buy as close to CBD as you can afford, and because of the land scarcity factor. Moving on, principle number 3, only buy houses and buy with as much land component as possible. Why is that? Because we all know there's one golden rule in investing: land appreciates, building depreciates. So you want to be able to secure the land with the house on top. So the house really is just be able to keep the cash flow going, because if you got the house, then essentially you can actually rent it out, and that's what's going to allow you to continue hold the property in the longer term while you wait for the land underneath that sits there to appreciate in price. So it's a very strong fundamental concept, because most people can only see what they can see. So when you walk into a house, you immediately get drawn to the house. But house is actually the one that depreciates. In other words, it loses value over time. But it's actually the land component that sits on top of it that appreciates, and that increases value over time. And that's why it's important for you to be able to, one, if as much as you can afford, buy a house with as much land component as possible, because the land is the component that really appreciates over time. Okay, so that's quite a simple one. But again, when some investors ask me, would you choose a property that has a smaller block of land, a much nicer house sitting on a smaller piece of land, or a more rundown property on a bigger block of land? And you know what I'll say? I'll always tell them, what is the golden rule in investing? Land appreciates and building depreciates, right? So which one would you choose? So there's our first 3 key investment principles for today. Now, next time, we'll cover a bit more into the remaining 10 principles, but I just want to thank again KieranK from Property Chat to be able to allow me to talk about these principles, and hopefully it has helped you a lot today in terms of moving towards the right direction for your next property. Now, if you like this video, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe to our channel for future video contents coming up, and as always, if you got any comments or feedback about what you'd like to see more and what we're doing well, feel free to comment below or drop me an email through david@landpower.com.au. Otherwise, I'll see you again in next week's Invest Power episode.